Been thinking about the nature of conflict and conflict as a driving force. That if you are just putting forth your pure positivity, what you think, without opposition, there's nothing to resist. I think about this in terms of the children of hippies. When you have parents who tell you, well, you could get married, you could stay single, you could do anything that you want to do. There's no expectations, there's nothing to push back against. And that is dangerous because it leaves one with a sense of emptiness. So when you have something to push back against, some kind of resistance force, then you exist, right? Your limitations define you. The borders, the contours of the face, where do you end? That is who you are. How far can you go? When do you meet a force that you can't overcome? At what point do you begin to fail? So it's really only in failure that we define ourselves. And if we never run up against failure, then we don't exist. Failure is at the point where we begin, and without it, we don't have substance. It's the limited nature of reality, the limited nature of the personality that makes us what we are. I think of God as being outside of all of that. And we have this desire to overcome limitations and to overcome problems. And so it's the movement from a state of being into a state of will. I don't even know if you can call will a state, because a state is something defined. Will is not. Will is by its nature the dynamic which moves states. Will is an indeterminate thing. It's not a thing. It's not a form. It's not an object. It's the space between. That's what God is. God is the space between. And as you sort of examine each of these objects, these limitations, these boundaries, these beings, you find that, on some simpler level, there's only the space between. There is no thing in itself. There's no static atom. There is no, and that's maybe what Heraclitus meant when he said everything is fire. Or what Thales meant when he said everything is water, that everything is dynamic. There is no true stone, there is no true rock that we can put our faith and hope and trust in, some unchanging object. The Bible as a piece of literature, as the Word, is referred to as a rock, a psychological anchor, but at the same time, words are means of communication, and they are somewhat indeterminate. Maybe the word, the logical form, is some kind of in-between confusing space. Is a word a thing? You know, if I say the word God, does that abstract concept have being in itself? If I say a unicorn, does that? Thank you.
Yeah.
I've been thinking that myself lately.
No, that's great. I had hair like that a long time ago, but just, anyway.
I appreciate it, man. Have a beautiful day. Wow, some nice people out here. See, when you put out the energy, you receive the energy. It's called compound interest. So, I've got a walk signal. Yeah, what was I saying? Something about, I don't know. I'm totally distracted by my ego right now. Okay, so words is a word a thing. If I say unicorn, does that word have reality? Do words have reality in themselves? I mean, there's a duality to words where it's like the imagination is real, the words are real, like they have a substance of their own. It's a kind of platonic substance. But it's not the same kind of substance that, like, in our imagination we can imagine a unicorn and we can imagine it standing over there, running, like how it would move, how it would breathe, how its hair would feel. And that refers to things which are outside of our imagination. But Schopenhauer says that there are, and maybe I'm not quoting him, but I'm kind of drawing from or inferring from him, that the imagination generates representation, and that some imagination and some representation is a result of intuitive sense perception. That is an unconscious process. When the heart beats, when the lungs breathe, when the eyes see, when the ears hear, we do not have conscious will over these things. You know, if I say, don't hear the music, don't listen to the music, I don't have control over that. But if I'm distracted, I might not hear the music. So the brain has different parts in it. It can perceive different things. Can you perceive this thing? Maybe you're not even watching the video. Maybe you think this is a podcast and you're just listening on your drive to work or on your workout at the gym. But we have involuntary perceptions that are somewhat, affected by the choices that we make, that can turn off and on. When we sleep, we don't see, we don't hear, but you can kind of hear things. And if someone shines a bright light, maybe you wake up. And so, like, the dream state is the state, or the sleeping state, if you believe sleepless or dreamless sleep is possible. I don't know that it is, to be honest with you. I think we are constantly dreaming, but that sometimes we don't remember our dreams because they're not logged into our memory. But I know that I dream way more than I remember. But we know that involuntary perceptions are occurring all the time. We're perceiving things in the unconscious mind that we don't perceive in the conscious mind. And at the same time, there are imaginings that we consciously draw to mind, the form of a unicorn. But all these things are fundamentally the same. One is stemming from involuntary sense perceptions. The other one is stemming from a voluntary conscious thought. But the representation is the same. It's something that occurs in the mind. It's not something out there in the real world. So are words the same? Are words representations of real things, or are they things in themselves? And what does that mean to be a thing? I would say that words have a type of being, an abstract being. They are abstract objects, not bodily objects, although they are products in a way of the body, if we accept that the mind is a body. The question becomes, what's outside of this mind and outside of this body? The Isha Kriya meditation advocated by Sadhguru states that I am not the body, I am not even the mind. So who is this subject? Who is this me? What is this I that we refer to? Is it illusion? Is it fake? Maybe. Maybe it is. But what if there was something outside of the mind and body, what would that something be? We have the spirit, right? So what is the spirit? The spirit is the motive force. It's not... Whereas the mind is a system of abstraction and the body is a system of physics, the spirit... Is the spirit even a system? We don't really know if the spirit is a system. Could it be? Could it be a system? Or is the spirit ultimately simple? We'd like to be able to conceive of a pure body. That's what Heraclitus and Thales tried to do. They tried to say, well, the ultimate nature of reality is a complex assortment of fire, a complex assortment of water. They wanted to reduce everything to its essence. And that for them was the essence of the material world. We tried to reduce everything to the essence of atoms or the essence of quarks, the essence of strings. We tried to reduce everything to its essence, and the essence of the mind, the essence of calculation, the logos, the mental faculty, ones and zeros, logic gates, electrical signals in the brain, neurochemistry, the neurons, electricity. We wanted to find its essence. And what is the essence of the spirit, the motive force? Not pure calculation, not objectivity, not just things, not statics, but what produces the movement, what produces novelty, what produces creativity? Where do things come from? Substance cannot produce substance. And what is the generative spark that introduces the substance and introduces dynamics? That motive force, oh boy, that motive force is the will. And that's God. And that is what we really are when you strip away the mind and you strip away the body. You strip away this flesh, you strip away the calculation, the intellectualism, the analysis, the overthinking. What do you have left? You have pure will, pure generative will, pure dynamics. That's God, that's synonymous. But the Gnostics said we've been trapped in flesh. And we've been trapped, I would even say we've been trapped by the mind. We've been trapped by gnosis. We've been trapped by knowledge. We've been configured into this brain and into this body. But if we stripped all that away, there would be something which is not destroyed. That's the will. You can't destroy the will. The will is not something which can be destroyed. The will it is the force behind creation, it is the force behind destruction, but it cannot be created or destroyed. So I lay out this vision of like who we are, what reality is, and that's all fine and good, but it's so abstracted, it's so zoomed out, it's so far away from the daily concerns of life, from the details and the weeds. It's like, what are we going to do about politics? What are we going to do about relationships? What about religion? This is like, I need a church, I need a community, I need friends, I need family. How do I conduct myself? What rituals, what language do we use? What particularities, what hobbies should I have? People ask me this. What tribe should I be a part of? What should my identity be? People ask me these questions instead of, I don't know. I was going to say instead of participating and putting forth answers, but honestly, if I'm really being brutal here, all I do is criticize and shoot those things down. I feel like that's my job. But that's just how I was raised, and that's just my pattern and my sculpture. I'm always trying to cut away what's unnecessary, what's ugly, what's wrong, what's bad. And I'm hoping that what's left from that process of fire is something beautiful and something true. But it's a very negative, via negativa process. And people are not capable, most people are not capable of generation and creation, especially in the face of someone like me. Like, how can you tolerate that level of scrutiny and continue to put forth ideas? And I just sort of shoot them down. That's hard. That's really hard. That might even be impossible. So, my mindset is perhaps too much vinegar and not enough honey. What do we want? What do we love? Why are we here? What's it all about? You can say love, but love of what? Love of the Spirit, love of God. We have a mind and we have a body, and we want to bring these things into harmony with each other. We don't want to constantly be against ourselves. I mean, we could, and that's how we find ourselves, and that's what we are. We're contradictory, but we don't want to be contradictory. I say that the human experience is, like Schopenhauer said, the swinging between suffering and boredom. When things are too new and too weird and too unfamiliar, too uncomfortable, then we suffer. We're scared, we're paralyzed by fear and anxiety. And we cover that over with apathy. But if things are too regular and too imprisoned and too entrapped, then we become bored. And there's some sweet spot in the middle where we're just comfortable enough, but there's just enough novelty. And this virtual world that we've built has provided us with things like, maybe you watch my videos and my videos are comfortable to you. It's like, I know he's going to say something that's sort of novel and poetic and interesting, but it's also the same old voice and the same old face. And so that's what people want. They want the sweet spot between those two things. But I said before that our identity is bound up in our limitations. So our limitations, the most absolute sense, is what's your ability to tolerate What is your ability to tolerate boredom? In this video, maybe you only hear half of what I'm saying because the cars are driving by. And it's boring, it's annoying. It's like, I don't want to have to slog through a video with bad audio quality. But do you have the patience to do that? If you have the patience to deal with boredom, to sit with it, to, to suffer under it, then you've expanded your limitations. You've expanded what you're capable of. And if, on the other hand, you take other forms of suffering, other forms of pain, and you're able to bounce back from that, not dwell in it. Like, I'm surprised I haven't dropped my phone already. Feelings of betrayal. I often get wrapped up in what other people think. I get wrapped up in, how people treat me. And what does that mean? If I'm treated badly, I have a sense of injustice. Who's to blame? Who's at fault? Did I do it wrong? Did they do it wrong? It becomes like a sadomasochistic drama, melodrama, where it's like, well, if people don't like me, then I either have to punish myself or I have to punish them. And neither is very productive, right? If somebody has done you wrong, and yeah, you can attack them, but is that going to be fruitful? People hate me. And so they watch my videos and they comment and they say, I hate you, I don't like you, you did me wrong, you treated me badly. And I ask them, how is this helping you? But as I ask them that question, which is rhetorical and has an obvious answer, I have to ask myself the same question. It's hard not to react. It's hard. We have an inbuilt pattern where it's like bad things happen and we want to do something about it, but sometimes the best thing to do is move on to something bigger and better. Like, you fail, it's like increase your exposure to failure, increase your quantity of failure, but don't increase the amount of time you spend dwelling in failure. Go up to a girl, ask her out, get rejected, turn around, next girl, do it again, Boomhauer method. Life is like, a crowd of women, and you just have to keep asking them out. But when you're a sensitive person, you can allow yourself to dwell. You can take the opportunity to ask yourself, why did I fail? And to think about it, and to think that somehow dwelling in it and thinking about it is the best course of action, when it's really not a course of action at all. It becomes an excuse not to take action. It's born of fear, the fear of, well, if I try again, I'll get rejected again. So, in order to avoid having to go through that, I'm going to just stew. I'm going to isolate. That's the idea. So we have to get out of that, to recognize that it's not honest. It's not honest. We should dwell in the basics. it is possible to take so much action and so much failure where you just keep doing the same thing over and over again. You never stop. That's where boredom comes in. Your ability to stop on a 4-hour plane ride, put your phone down, and just think. Think about your fears. Dwelling on your fears. I mean, there's two ways to do that. You can dwell on your fears in an emotional sense. And you can say, man, I'm really afraid of the future because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I'm ever going to achieve my dreams. And I don't know. Maybe I should go back to a life of distraction. It was only a couple weeks ago. You know, I should go back to a rhythm that's familiar, even if it's terrible, because why bother trying? Because, you know, you try hard, and the harder you try, the worse it feels to fail, and you become more cynical with time. You can dwell in that. You can dwell in your fears. You know, you can have legal problems, and you can sit around and think, oh man, what if this thing doesn't go the right way, and man, I'll just be ruined. You know, it's like a series of it's a butterfly effect, mountain out of a molehill, where it's like, well, this one thing will go bad and this one thing will go bad. You know, it's kind of like that RuneScape quest, one small favor. It's like, I just need a pot of flour, but to get a pot of flour you need a key, and to get the key you got to kill the monster, but to kill the monster you need the sword, but the sword needs the wizard, and the wizard needs... And so your mind can just be like, yeah, well, I'm going to stub my toe, and because I stubbed my toe, I'm going to fall down the stairs, and I fall down the stairs and I'm paralyzed. No woman will ever love me, and I'll never have children, and I'll die alone, and I'll be depressed, and I'll be poor, right? So you can dwell in your fear in that way, but there's also, maybe it's not dwelling in fear, it's dwelling on fear, dwelling against fear, and saying, like, these are my fears, and in what context do they exist? They exist in the context of, I can fear anything and everyone and everybody, and it's not going to make a difference. I can spend my whole life in fear, and it's not going to make anything good happen. So why bother with it? Yes, there's always a scale that we can zoom out to and say, but if this happens and this happens, then it's all worthless. You can always Socratically deconstruct anything. But is that, all things being equal, is that really what you want to do? Yeah, living fearlessly, not being afraid of boredom, not being afraid. I think I'm holding this guy up. Someone's holding somebody up here. I see a speed limit 5 miles an hour sign. I just wanted to check out the horses, you know. Telephone cable underground. There's the horses. There they are. So, I've just got an hour to kill, you know, and I think about how I spend my days, and how smoke-free, okay, interesting. I have... Every day I could squeeze an hour out of every day, and I could put up an hour-long video. People don't like that, though, but I don't like to edit videos, so I tried to make a habit. It's harder to do on the go. Is it possible? Yes. If you organize and you plan and you prepare and you make it a priority, yes. It's possible to find an internet cafe and to do an hour of editing every day. It's possible. You know, there are homeless people with computers. I could join their ranks. And they make it work, or they make something work. I don't know. If you really want to do something, you can make it work. There's no, oh, I was sick. I didn't feel like it. I didn't have enough time. These are never true. Not once. The truth is, it wasn't important enough to me. I didn't make it important enough to me. Because all those things can be overcome. There's no limitation. Oh, I didn't have the money. Well, then make money. Oh, I don't know how to. Well, then figure it out. Oh, I'm not smart. Well, find someone who is. Well, I couldn't find anyone. Well, try harder. There's always a way to make it happen. So I could edit these videos if I wanted to, but I don't. I really don't want to edit these videos. It's mostly it's an anger that I get when I spend 10 hours editing a video. I put it out and it gets less views than one of these straight shot stream of consciousness. It just feels like a total kick in the head, you know? And that's why I don't like to do it. But getting in the habit of doing that would be good. I hate being in front of the computer. I like to be outside. I like to talk to people. I like to deal with the real world. I hate to be in front of a computer and editing. I suppose I should ask for some favors. Because if you don't ask, you won't get anything, right? So here's what I need from you. I need some business cards. I need some business cards that say Deep Left Jockhole, YouTube, Twitter. That's it, really. It doesn't need to be fancy. It's not complicated. That's what I need. I need, 100 business cards I can put in a wallet. I mean, it could be 1,000. I don't really care. I just need some business cards, and I need to be able to hand them out to people, like always, everywhere, on the street. Hey, how's it going? Great day we're having. Hey, check this out. Have you heard of this before? Have you heard of this guy? Oh, that's me. You should check me out. I need to do that everywhere at all times. Because this is my life, right? So I need some business cards. And I could order them myself. And I could get them delivered to an address. And I could go pick them up at that address. But, this is my wish list. These are the gifts that I would like to get. And I need a cameraman. I need someone who will follow me around with a camera, and we can talk to people and do interviews. Or a camera woman. You could be a woman. I'm stuck in the old ways. I'm stuck in the age of Harvey Weinstein when there were only cameramen and no camera women. And to that effect, I would like a nice camera. I almost bought one years ago. I bought a nice camera. I never use it because it's got like this weird chip that you take out and you put in the computer somehow, and it just seems like a whole process to me. I almost got the Bluetooth one, the one where it via Bluetooth transfers the files to your computer. I'd like one where you could just plug in USB, because the whole little chip thing doesn't make sense to me. I'm afraid of it. I'm scared. All right. So those are some things that I'd like. Those are some things that I need. Do I really need them? No. Would they be nice to have? In theory. I used to think about yard signs and stickers, and I don't think we're quite at that level yet, though. I think business cards would be a good. And the other thing I want is every time I visit somebody, I'd like that person to think of 10 questions. And maybe they don't, but that's like the maximum. I don't want more than 10 questions, but I'd like 10, at least one question that you can turn on a video and they can say, hey, what do you think about archaeology? And I go off for 10 minutes on archaeology. Interviews, turn the classroom around, because people don't want to be interviewed. People don't want to talk. Certain people do. But they don't want to talk in front of a camera. They don't want it on YouTube. People are shy. It's all risk and no reward. So, turn it around. Turn the interview around. You interview me. I should have been telling everybody that from day one, and I've told people before, and they still, it's something you have to remind people. You have to say, I'm coming tomorrow, and remember, we need 10 questions. That's all I'm asking is 10 questions, and we turn on the camera, and we ask our 10 questions. Imagine I would have 50 videos, interviews of me right now. That would be incredible. I mean, what a loss. What a terrible, tragic loss. People talk sometimes, or you think sometimes like, oh, what if my phone was stolen or it broke and the videos I have made were lost forever? Or what if my channel was taken down and the videos were lost forever? Oh, we need to put them up on Odyssey. And I say, no. Videos have already been lost. Every day that I've had an opportunity to make a great video, but I didn't because I was afraid, or I wasn't prepared, or I didn't put in the time and effort, that's a lost video. You don't know about those videos, and I don't know about those videos, but they exist in some platonic realm. The platonic realm where all my best videos are, but they've never been made, and maybe they never will be made because I haven't put in the time, haven't put in the effort. A butterfly machine. Wow, this is interesting. I'm not going to do that because this is internal rotation. Look at this. This is a butterfly machine. This is gym equipment in the outside world. Outdoor fitness. Look, this is a pec exercise and I don't know what the heck is going on with this guy's abs. They're way too high up his body. These attachments are all weird. And then this is a front delt exercise. Yeah, so there are videos that I haven't made that are really good that will never see the light of day because I didn't ask people to ask me 10 questions, and I didn't put in all the stuff. So it's something to keep in mind. Life can be so much better. Life can be so much more amazing than it is. I mean, like, this is mediocre. I didn't prepare a script. I'd like to be like a Iliadic Homer, and I can just memorize whole like trains of thought and then recite them on commands, like, the type of thing where you're in the courtroom or you're about to be hanged on the gallows and you just sort of recite something. I went to a poetry reading and I pulled up a short story I wrote 7 years ago or something. And as I was reading it, I was like, oh, this isn't very good. I should edit it. But to spend the time on writing when I don't even feel like I'm a very good writer and there's not a lot of reward. I suppose I should go to more poetry readings. I mean, I should go to a poetry reading every day. And that would incentivize me to work on my writing, because every time I read something, I'd say, oh, this is not very good. And I'd have the motivation to work on it, but then I forget about it until the next 7 years. So I'm dependent on that instant gratification. I'm dependent upon the feedback, the feeling that I'm being watched, I'm being heard, I'm being listened to. But it's all relative, right? I've started to think about this question of changing lives and the skepticism. Like, people can very easily engage my skepticism, my cynicism. It's like a switch, and so when people know how to turn it on, it's like, it's almost, I'm like an animal, like I just can't control myself. And people say, oh, are you really changing people's lives? You know, what does that even really mean? And I'm like, you're so right, you know? Here today, gone tomorrow. What does it all really mean? Is it, you know, this is just, you can always change the scale. And you can always take something meaningful and make it meaningless by changing the perspective and saying, okay, well, yeah, you know, friends, family, what is it all really? We're just here today, gone tomorrow. So you have to take the opposite approach, and you have to say, no, this is meaningful. This conversation is meaningful. This is change right now. If you believe it's change, then it is. If you believe it's meaningful, then it is. Now, that doesn't mean that, you know, I don't know. We have an idea in our heads of like a snake oil salesman, like power of positive thinking guy who's just like happy all the time. And we say that is fake. That person is fake. They are just pretending to be happy. It's all a show. It's all a performance. It's not genuine. It's like you go to Russia and they don't smile for pictures because that would be fake. You know, you ask them, how are you doing? They don't say fine. They say, today is a cold day in Russia. And the people around me are alcoholics and the government is corrupt. That is how I am doing. And they tell it to you straight. For some reason in America, we've developed this, I think it is because of capitalism, that we've developed this salesman attitude. Like, you're always selling something. Like, I'm selling the YouTube videos. You're selling, I don't know what you're selling, but we're all selling something. And it's service with a smile. So we always have to be positive, or you always have to be negative. I turn on the news and it's like they're selling tragedy and grotesque evils and salacious hysteria. Is that real? No. No one really cares. There's a lot of fakeness when money's involved. It's not genuine. It's not authentic. But what do you do about that? I don't know. Is there something on the other side where it's like, yeah, I fake my emotions. I'm a salesman. But you're detached from the whole process. You're detached from it and you say, you know, it is what it is. I go and I smile, I kiss babies, I shake hands, and it's what I do to earn a living. It's what I do to make it in the world. I think a lot about the older generation and how they've got like 90% of the wealth, you know. They own the homes, they own the real estate. They have the 401ks, the stock market goes up, the real estate goes up. You know, I think about that and I think about the ways in which they feel a duty to save the world by, supporting Trump and Charlie Kirk and all this stuff. And I'm like, why don't you just look at your own grandchildren and invest in them? Like, isn't there something you could do directly for them that wouldn't just be like giving them a handout, but, I don't know, build a church, or I don't know. What would that mean? I mean, couldn't we all move together with all that money, all that boomer cash that, they get the emails that say, Marty, I thought you were a true patriot, but I see you haven't donated to Trump's emergency storm fund or whatever, and it's like, okay, so Marty's gonna write a check, but it's like, Marty, couldn't you figure out a way to get all your kids and grandkids together and form a little village, the village of Marty? Or like, all you people, couldn't you figure out a way to do that? To, you say, oh, everything's going rotten. I mean, shouldn't we be focused on homeschooling and education? I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird thing to me. But, people want to view things through the lens that they grew up with. So it's all about making America great again. It's all about, fighting communism. AOC and Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden is a communist. It's the Cold War. We never stopped fighting the Cold War. That's what it is. And it's sad. It's sad, but I don't know, at some point people have to break out of that. I mean, maybe they don't have to. Maybe they could just stay stuck in it till they die and the cycle continues. But you'd hope that people at some point would stop fighting shadows and they'd start being like, oh, there's people I love and care for, like, in front of me, like, down the street or whatever. And maybe I should be organizing and donating, and I should be an activist for those people rather than sinking everything into, like, here's a documentary about the election and this 2-hour expose and I'm gonna, I don't know how you overcome it. Are we going to do the same thing? I mean, as much as I'm frustrated with the older generation, the younger generation just seems completely hopeless and in some ways undeserving. I mean, I don't really believe that, but there's moments where you look at these Zoomers and they are completely... it's not that they're detached from reality. I almost said that. It's the opposite. They are attached to unreality. They're attached to these sensitivities. They cannot get over themselves. Tucker, I don't watch Tucker, but someone was quoting Tucker to me. He's like, oh, Tucker recently said self-awareness is evil. And I basically responded by, it's like self-awareness can be superficial, but it can also be deep. And if you have a deep level of self-awareness, if you are deeply self-aware in the way that an athlete is aware of his body and a writer is aware of his writing, but maybe it's not awareness of the self so much as it's aware of the art. If you're focused on your art, then that's good. If you're focused on your action, let's say it like that, if you're really focused on what you're doing, then I think that's good. focused on it, not scrutinizing it, but you're focused on it. You're present. You're dedicating 100% of your spirit toward that action. That's good. But if you're self-aware in a superficial sense where you're self-referentially scrutinizing all your thoughts over and over again, then obviously, yeah, that's neurotic. So that's what the young people are. They're disengaged. They are not capable of confronting the problem of action. They're only capable of this internal scrutinization. Everything's categorized. Everything's put into a little box. You know, I'm diagnosed with this, and I have this disorder, and I have this sexuality, I have this gender, I have this romantic orientation. It's binomial nomenclature. Everything is split up into a million pieces, and it's like someone who has no control over their life, someone who lives in some kind of freakish hellscape, but then they're like making sure that all the little dolls in their doll collection. I mean, I know people like this, right? It's like a tragic life story where someone dies, or, you know, divorce, or, you know, loneliness. When people get lonely, I notice this behavior. And it used to be real because people used to collect dolls. I don't think they do so much anymore. It's more of a, like, you know, back before we had action figures and whatever. Doll collecting, where you have cabinets, you know, antique cabinets filled with dolls that are worth, oh, this one's worth thousands of dollars. And you go to antique shows and doll shows and you display your dolls, and like that's your obsession, that's your hobby. And it's kind of like I couldn't have real relationships with real people. I couldn't make it work for whatever reason, through my fault or someone else. And so I'm going to have all these dolls, and the dolls are representative of having control over, you know, this is the doll. This doll was made in 1925, and this is an Edward Reiser doll, and you know, you can see here's the seal, you know, here's the little the number to show which number this doll was, and I've got them all lined up all perfectly here for my sense of control, because I've completely lost control of my life, because my destiny is out of my hands, because I'm totally imprisoned by a evil system, by my free will has been sacrificed. And so the only way I can exercise it is in this very particular way. And that's what I see Zoomers doing to their own identity, is particularizing their identity in this particular way, and treating every personality trait as a little diagnosable medical disorder that can be lined up very neatly, and that gives them a sense of control over their lives in a paradoxical way. You know, the more we lose our outward engagement, the more we dwell in this inward scrutiny, this inward neuroticism. That's to be expected, and it's not their fault, right? It's not as if there's this conception of history where each generation is like a person, and each person determines their own destiny completely individual. You know, it's like, you know, we boomers pulled ourselves up by our bootstrap, or even you could go as far as Gen X, I don't know. You know, Gen X pulled themselves up by the bootstraps. Boomers pulled themselves up, the greatest generation, the silent generation, all the way back to the beginning of time. We all pulled ourselves up, and we always had religion, and we always had conservative, traditional family values, and all of a sudden these Zoomers just went off the reservation completely independently. You know, they just decided to go crazy, and I don't understand. You know, the world's sure is crazy these days. It's obviously not their fault. They're obviously responding to incentives. They're only doing what they know how to do, what they've been taught to do. So you can't blame them in that sense. But, you know, it is sad. It's still sad to see. I guess I always try to see the upside as, well, you know, if we're living in a time where the vast masses are completely enslaved, then that just means that if you're a normal dude, by comparison, you're some kind of superhuman. You know, when people praise me or something, I'm just like, I'm just a normal dude to the extent that I'm worthy of praise. And that's what I see. I mean, expectations have shifted. Expectations are low. I wonder if I'm going to have to find some sort of Wi-Fi, some sort of free Wi-Fi, because I'm not, maybe there it goes. We'll see. We've almost reached an hour. We've almost reached the end of the hour. This place, they tell you, you can replace your bread with waffles. They don't tell you just lost your bread and now you're paying more money. They don't tell you that your breakfast is going to be $37 or $34 as opposed to your dinner was like $25. That's topsy-turvy. Any world in which breakfast is more expensive than dinner, there's something wrong. There's something wrong there. All right, we're crossing the street. My pants are falling down. I think there was a better way to organize this. I think I should have said, I'm going to be without a washer and dryer for 2 weeks, so I need to lay out 2 weeks worth of clothes on top of everything, clearly indicated, clearly, I'm going to sneeze here. Clearly, I'm fighting the sneeze. You know, easily accessible. And then I could have had everything sorted out, but it's a nice warm day, relatively speaking. People are working. It's kind of weird to look inside at people. I don't think that's proper. I don't think we should do that. But we've almost made it to an hour. I just have to survive 3.5 minutes here, and then I'll be in the home stretch. I'll be in the clear. I'm trying to remember the name of this coffee shop. I don't remember what it was called. That's a bad thing. I said it out loud. I often, if I really want to remember something, I'll say it out loud. We're closing in. I remember the thing next door. I think I'm just going to take a left here. Sort of impressed with myself. Not that I took too many twists and turns, but I figured out where I'm supposed to be. I suppose I could just end the video and then, you know, I would walk in silence for a few minutes, but it would be less filler audio for you to watch. So I'll give the spiel. The spiel is, please like the video. There's no dislike button, or there is, but you can't see the dislikes anymore, which actually I really don't like that. I like to see my unpopular videos. I like that conflict. But like the video, comment on the video, comment a timestamp, comment a question. Forgive me for my excessive scrutiny. Post it on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. I offer to video chat people on Telegram. Very few people take that up. People are very difficult. I would think if you're a fan of mine and you care about what I have to say, it would be worth 5 minutes of your time to download Telegram and to sign up. in order to speak to me, but 9 out of 10 people are not willing to do that, which is disappointing because I expect everybody to be as excited about this as I am, but obviously that's not the case. We have to deal with failure. We cannot dwell in failure, but we have to encounter failure. Where's the best sunlit angle? I had a really good sunlit angle over there. What did I say? Subscribe, comment, like, share, comment a timestamp, video chat me on Telegram. That's pretty much it. Bye-bye.
Nice. Subscribe. Very good.
Nice. Beautiful,
Very good.
beautiful. You're gonna love it. If you love autism, you're gonna love my channel. Okay, great.
All right.